need to look at how much resources can this government generate more.
Are we getting good value for money in those sectors?
This country is losing a lot of resources because of abuse of tax holidays and tax incentives.
My greatest disappointment is that those who enjoy tax holidays are actually the ones who can afford to pay the taxes and not feel the pinch.
Government is having much money, but it is being misused.
If you go to ministers, they are getting a lot of money, and yet the work they do, it is the same as the work we do as teachers and the doctors do.
Nyingi naye za abazifuna balubatu.
For any country to develop, it should be able to generate revenue from taxes, allocate it appropriately, and ensure it is properly utilized. In the case of Uganda, quality social services are often not delivered because the government gets it wrong as regards taking prudent policy decisions on revenue generation from taxation. The country's tax revenue to GDP is the lowest in the sub-Saharan Africa, standing at a meager 13% compared to 20% in the region, or even 30% from advanced economies.
So, for us to be collecting tax revenue of only 13% of GDP, percentage-wise less than Rwanda, less than Tanzania, yeah, nearly 50% less than Kenya, it is a shaming.
Uganda has the potential to generate revenue required for the provision of better quality public services and to foster development. For example, over the years, there has been an increase in the share of the national budget funded by locally generated resources from 51% in 2009 to almost 70% in 2013.
The challenge is having come up with these priorities and having committed to these allocations. How much money do you eventually spend in that sector? And then, are we getting good value for money in those sectors?
For everyone toiling at work, the desired goal is to transform their lives, provide for their loved ones, and live a better life. However, that cannot be realized unless the generation, allocation, and utilization triangle on taxation is carefully followed. For a country of over 34 million people, majority of whom are engaged in agriculture, one would think this would attract a bigger portion of the budget than the 3.4%, which is far below the Maputo Declaration of 10%. No wonder the smallholder farmers are still cultivating just like our forefathers, basic and rudimentary.
Okusinzira nga wenda omusolo tempadde service emala lwa nsonga obanga omusolo sina wengufuniddemu wengufuniramu nganzi kunongosa enguudo ebintu byange byennima ne bitambula bulungi naye service tegimpadde bulungi.
It is not just in agriculture that we decry failings. The situation in other critical sectors like education and health is equally worrying. In such schools, with children studying under trees or in the dust, it becomes a sore reminder that we have set our priorities wrong. It is not only the children who have been forgotten, but their teachers too are also in a dire situation.
I drink water. Paying tax is not bad, but it should be put on people who are getting a lot of money. Like for us teachers, we are having a problem of getting very little money, and they tax us.
If the teachers who are like foot soldiers in the war against illiteracy are not fully armed, how on earth can one dream of victory? Inadequate funding to the education sector and poor intra-sector allocation has resulted in poor infrastructure and low motivation to teachers, ultimately undermining education outcomes.
Yeah, to me, the government is having much money, but it is being misused in corruption, and that money which would be used in our sectors to improve the service delivery is being given as bribes to those top officials in the government.
This unfair allocation of tax revenue is even more felt in the health sector. Whereas the Abuja Declaration, for which Uganda is signatory, calls for a 15% budget allocation, the ministry receives only 8%. No wonder. To the government, the statistical data that Uganda loses 16 women due to pregnancy-related complications daily may sound like just a number. But somewhere in Uganda today, 16 families are mourning the loss of a wife, a sister, a mother, or a daughter. That is another scar on the conscience of the nation and a government that has allowed tragedy to happen on a daily basis. Because Ugandans pay taxes that run the government and as such are critical partners in the running of state affairs, they need to know what exactly the tax has done to improve public services and alleviate the poverty situation in the country.
Olw'okubanza tegunnyamba olw'okuba bye bagamba mbu guyina gwe kiyamba n'okitunuulira tekibeerawo olw'okuba ssente era bazitwala bajja ne babasaba ne mugenda ne batwala ssente.
There is no doubt that direct taxes today are targeted to a narrow bracket, as most of potential taxpayers are involved in informal businesses that are not documented.
My greatest disappointment is that those who enjoy tax holidays are actually the ones who can afford to pay the taxes and not feel the pinch.
Transparency International ranks Uganda among the most corrupt countries in the world. In fact, estimates by the World Bank suggest that Uganda loses 500 billion shillings per year through procurement-related corruption alone. This money, if spent on the health sector, could build and equip over 8 regional hospitals. Uganda continues to lose revenue through unregulated and non-transparent processes of granting tax incentives and exemptions to both local business entities and multinational companies. These tax holidays and tax evasion lead to loss of approximately 690 billion per year. This can fund the entire budget for agriculture for 2 years. Instead, a lot more has been spent on what the public generally considers non-priority expenditures, such as purchase of fighter jets, luxury fuel gasoline cars for cabinet ministers, and the cottage industry of unviable districts.
Corruption in Uganda is so bad. It's kind of endemic. It's sort of institutionalized. It is at all levels. In fact, people who are straight and clean are not considered to be clever. These people who are evading taxes are the clever people. These people who are working the system are the ones who are clever. These smart, yes. And that is really unfortunate. And it's so bad that, when you think about it from a generation perspective, the youngsters who are in school, high school, and looking at us who are a bit more established people who have been working for the last 20 years and see the car you drive, they say they want that tomorrow. Yeah? So you can look at it from the commercial enterprise, you can look at it at the household level, you look at it at the street in terms of the traffic wardens, you look at it at the highest level, office of the Prime Minister, in the army, in the police, in the revenue authority, everywhere. It is unfortunate.
Make no mistake, paying taxes is an obligation to every working citizen. But equally, service delivery is an expected outcome and government must account for this money.
This country needs tax, and we need the tax to be put to sectors that are beneficial to the people we believe in, the poor people. More money for education, to put our children in school for quality education. We want more money for agriculture, for the smallholder farmers. We need more money for health so that women can stop dying every day while giving birth.
That is the cornerstone of democracy and good governance, the social contract between citizens and their leaders. Citizens pay taxes to enable government to get revenue to provide essential social services. ActionAid Uganda's Tax Justice campaign is an expression of citizen power in demanding for progressive tax, progressively spent to improve the quality and quantity of services.